Freddie Mercury was one of the most flamboyant and internationally successful musicians of all time. I mean, he's widely considered to be a legendary rock vocalist. It was hard to hear anybody else singing when his stunning voice sung on the radio since it was so distinctive. You can see why most admirers couldn't accept that a man with such a public life could have such hidden demons. The fact remained, though, that Freddie was secretive. Beginning with his humble beginnings, you would be astounded to discover their nature. Many of Freddie's admirers were unaware of his Indian heritage as he gained fame, and he clearly enjoyed it that way. Those who were fortunate enough to be near him saw that he spoke about his history in a way that made it sound confined and oppressive. Your pal could sense he was uncomfortable broaching the subject, according to another. His existence outside of England was a complete mystery to him. Ever. To anyone. He expressed his immense joy at their arrival in England. Gujarat, India is the place of birth for both Bomi and Balsara, Freddie's parents. Farrukh Balsara was the name they chose for their newborn son Freddie. Kashmira Balsara was his sister. Zanzibar, which is now in Tanzania, was Freddie and his sister's home when they were little. Bomi Balsara, Freddie's father, and Balsara, his mother, had recently arrived in what was then a British colony Zanzibar in 1946 so that Bomi could keep his position as a cashier at the British Colonial Office. With their newfound status as a British protectorate, Freddie became a naturalized British citizen. The revolutionary upheaval and societal turmoil in Zanzibar forced the family to return to India in the end. Bombay was their initial stop, and Freddie attended a boys' boarding school there to finish his schooling. In addition to his love of reading, he also started to play the piano at this school. The story's centrality to the boarding school is plainly amplified. When you consider that it was there that Freddie initially realized he would love and devote a lot of time to music. Freddie possessed a remarkable talent for picking up radio tunes and playing them back on the piano, according to a buddy of his from when he was 12 years old. As a result, he put together a school band called the Hectics, and they covered songs by rock and roll greats including Cliff Richard and Little Richard. The truth was that Freddie had no taste in music other than Western pop. He played and listened to this music exclusively. Following in the footsteps of his musical heroes, he decided to go by the English name Freddie. His family promptly uprooted from India and settled in Feltham, a suburb outside of London. When they downsized to a smaller residence, they planned to start the process all over again. In West London, at Isleworth Polytechnic, Freddie pursued art as his major. He continued his education at Ealing Art College, where he earned a diploma in graphic design. At school, his peers thought he was only waiting for the right moment to dive headfirst into music. He seemed to exhale melodies. A classmate of his recounted how Freddie often said, "I'm going to be a pop star," even before he was in a band. Some individuals frequently questioned whether he wasn't merely hallucinating due to the conviction. They had no idea. After Freddie finishes college, he should start searching for a job where he can put his degree to use. He began, however, to join bands. At first, he was a member of the Hendrix-influenced heavy blues band Ibex, which he helped rebrand to Wreckage, in Liverpool. He became a member of Sour Milk Sea, a band from Oxford, after this one bombed. However, this group too disbanded after a few years. In the early days of his career as a vocalist, Freddie worked odd jobs all throughout London. For a while, he was self-sufficient, selling used clothing and even working as an airport porter. From an apartment in the Dovedale Towers to a tavern in the Moseley Hill district of Liverpool, his living arrangements were all over the place. However, Freddie seemed unconcerned about this. On certain occasions, no one suspected that he was a singer. On other occasions, he was the reserved young guy who loved music. Because of his ostentatious behavior, they simply assumed he was that insane friend. Despite the lack of progress he desired, he persisted in singing in bands across London until either the band broke up or he decided to pursue other opportunities. In one of these bandless instances, he learned that Roger Taylor and Brian May, two of his closest pals, had also recently become bandless. It seemed as though the moment had been predetermined by the heavens. Freddie had made an effort to go to a lot of his friends' concerts because he and his buddies both had a strong desire to perform on stage together. Even Brian and Roger, who had gone to see Freddie perform, ended up joining him on stage just before the event ended. Liverpool was the first place in the world where Freddie, Brian, and Roger performed on stage together. Finally, the teamwork they had all been hoping for had arrived. It was just that nobody knew it yet. To start a new band, Freddie invited them to play with him. Without giving it any thought, the lads established the band. Roger contributed his drumming chops, Brian his guitar prowess, and Freddie his distinctive voice, piano skills, and sight-reading abilities. The Grand Dance was proposed by Brian and Roger as the band's name. But Freddie suggested they call themselves Queen. Both Brian and Roger thought Queen was a more straightforward name, so they went with it. During this time, there was yet another significant shift. Since they were forming a new band, Freddie felt he could finally be himself because he had more of a voice and was with his buddies. It was then that he decided to adopt a new identity. Mercury, being the ruling planet of Virgos, was an obvious choice for him. Suddenly, the Englishman stepped in for the vanished Indian, Farrukh Bulsara. Freddie Mercury, who possessed a golden voice. Queen played their debut show at Truro City Hall on June 27, 1970. To make matters worse, this wasn't even their job description. Not even the band Queen had been summoned to provide a performance. At a benefit her mom was planning, Roger's previous band was scheduled to perform. Roger, however, quit the band before the scheduled date. Roger could not bear to disappoint her, so he had Queen perform there instead. Queen sought out a bassist to round out their lineup, showing that they were taking things seriously. But Brian and Roger met John Deacon at a dance the next year while they were students at Maria Assumpta Teaching Training College. He met the men and introduced them. He consented to try out for an audition with the band after they informed him they needed a bass player. Everything that followed Queen's coronation is, well, history. 2 record labels, EMI and Elektra, signed the band, and they issued their first album, Queen. Many still consider it to be one of the finest first albums ever made by a rock band. Each member of the band contributed exactly what was needed to create their sound. Freddie's distinctive voice caught listeners' attention due to its remarkable range of nearly 4 octaves. This was what the Spanish singer Montserrat Cabal had to say about how Freddie stood apart from the other rock artists of his day. Freddie was unique among rock stars in that he made a living off of his voice. Next, she proceeded to detail it in a manner that revealed her intent to critique Freddie's vocal skills. Her commentary looked like this. He had incredible technique. No time constraint here. His sense of rhythm was sharp and precise in his singing. He had excellent voice positioning and could move fluidly between different registers. On top of that, he was very musical. Subtle was his wording. He had a remarkable talent for finding the perfect shade of color or emotive undertone for every word, whether it was light and gentle or powerful and thunderous. The superb one, or La Superba, was very effusive in her praise. Everyone agrees that Montserrat Cabal is one of the most legendary opera singers of all time. What made it so perfect was that no matter how much attention Freddie's vocals got, his band's amazing performance kept it. The team's greatness was due to it. Freddie never intended to leave the band, even when he began his solo career. Even though he couldn't leave his loved ones behind, he felt compelled to pursue a single career. He felt bad about his 3 friends devoting their time and energy to something they didn't truly believe in, since he had specific musical goals he wanted to achieve, some of which he knew they wouldn't be enthusiastic about. I can see your point. The first of Freddie's solo albums, 1985's Mr. Bad Guy, was followed by more. Mr. Bad Guy is an expression of his multifaceted personality, and his dedication to the project was palpable. For their non-interference, Freddie extended special gratitude to his Queen bandmates. No member of the band contributed more creatively than any other to the numerous excellent tunes that came out of that group. Every member's opinion was valued because the organization always operated in a democratic manner. According to the source, all 4 members of the band have written #1 hits for the group, demonstrating their mutual respect and cooperation in the production process. Spectacular illumination accompanied by this tremendous writing power. Freddie did, however, compose some of Queen's finest songs. It was the meticulous manner in which he combined a number of musical styles that made him stand out. Of course, Bohemian Rhapsody is the first song that springs to mind. When it came out in 1975, this iconic hit dominated the UK charts for a solid 9 weeks. The song's length and operatic flair lead you to believe that it was almost never released. The song would go on to achieve immense popularity, according to Freddie, who informed his band and everybody else who listened. The band's unique and infectious music was just one factor in their popularity. The personality of the Queen was bold, colorful, and wildly unpredictable. It was greatly enhanced by Freddie's incorporation of balletic motions and dramatic flair, which were frequently showcased on stage and even in video recordings. Many viewers praised the show's adept use of space. As soon as they hit the stage, Freddie and the band were off and running like smoke bombs. Whether playing to 230,000 people in Sao Paulo or an arena with 80,000 seats, their music would fill the entire arena. What would later be known as stadium rock had its origins in them. They mastered the art of performing in front of an audience of hundreds of thousands. Furthermore, they gained notoriety as trailblazers in the field of pop videos due to their extensive library of 3 to 4 minute video clips, which underwent continuous evolution as their popularity grew. They achieved even greater astounding success on a global scale as a result of this captivating stage presence. Because of the unforgettable and everlasting performance they gave at Live Aid, which was seen by over 1.9 billion people from 150 countries, roughly 40% of the global population, during the live broadcast. Consider enormous, and then double it by 10,000. Freddie was unconcerned about this. To him, it was merely a pleasant gathering. He was so at ease performing in front of the audience that he utterly dominated the stage. A commenter made the astute observation that Freddie's charisma and talent will be surpassed by none. Ever. A different Queen governed England for 21 minutes. You may see footage of that historic event on social media with captions like that these days. The entire stadium was under Freddie's control. Being able to halt singing and let the crowd take control without hesitation was a powerful feeling. An audience member gushed that the entire event was fantastic, but that Queen, particularly during the performance of We Will Rock You, was the highlight. She expressed her concern that the crowd's pounding feet may cause the stadium to collapse. She went on to say that before that day, she didn't really like for Queen, but after that performance, she became a huge fan. Bohemian Rhapsody, We Are the Champions, and We Will Rock You, 3 of Queen's most popular songs, were performed with Freddie's incredible vocals, incredible guitar work, and the boundless energy of the audience. After those 21 minutes, Queen and Freddie were indelibly linked in the annals of rock lore. Just when you think it can't get any higher, another surprise is in store. On the recording of West End Musical Time in London, he worked with Dave Clark for the first time outside of Queen. One of his lifelong goals was to collaborate with opera icon Montserrat Cabal, and he accomplished this the following year. Their duet, Barcelona, became the 1992 Olympic theme song and an anthem for Cabal's hometown. In order to record Innuendo with Queen, Freddie went back to the studio. The public knew all about Freddie's professional life, but his personal life remained a mystery. Interview requests were infrequent for him. One major secret was that, despite his prominence, he remained painfully bashful. The media came up with all sorts of stories due to his refusal to give interviews that would have clarified things. From inquiries over his sexuality to the lengthy romance he had with Mary Austin. Sometime later, Freddie was said to have a preference for males. Freddie had a period of casual affairs after his partnership with a record executive ended, during which he frequented gay bathhouses in New York. Later in life, he would marry male hairstylist Jim Hutton and spend the rest of his life with him. Consequently, Freddie's right to privacy sparked some debate. The tabloids continued to use his father Bomi Bulsara as a scapegoat for his relationship issues. Freddie kept his distance from his family after he became famous, which may have added fuel to the fire of the notion that familial strife existed. In reality, Freddie's mother, Jarobo Sarah, had a more public and well-documented relationship with her son than his father, Freddie. Although Freddie admired his father, he did not feel as close to him as he did to his mother, and Freddie expressed some doubts about his father's ideas in multiple interviews. Maybe it was because she encouraged his creative endeavors. Although his conventional and traditional father had other plans for his son's future. As Freddie's career took off, he and his father's relationship grew increasingly distant and strained. While discussing the dynamic between Freddie and his father, Brian made the observation that Freddie's father, who was deeply devoted to the Parsi faith, likely found it difficult that his son pursued the more irreverent career route that Freddie did in rock music. But we had unwavering support from everyone. Joe, in particular, was very interested in how we were developing as a band. He would enthusiastically attend our shows whenever we were in the area. The secret that was finally revealed on November 23, 1991, was far more significant than all these revelations put together. Freddie Mercury appeared emaciated and worn out in a photo that appeared in a special piece titled The Sad Face of Freddie Mercury that ran in The Sun. Reuters were concerned. Several weeks prior to Queen's last American performance with Mercury on Saturday Night Live in 1982, he allegedly quietly went to a doctor in New York City to have a white lesion on his tongue examined. He has avoided the spotlight since his 1986 final performance with Queen due to his deteriorating health. Because he, the band, and his family were never in the spotlight, fans had no clue what was happening. Word got out that Freddie had an AIDS diagnosis. As well as his close associates, rejected the accusation. The media went to extreme lengths, even residing outside of Freddie's home, in their pursuit of the truth. After that, Freddie released this statement on November 23. When she said, "I wish to confirm that I have been tested HIV positive and have AIDS," her fans were stunned beyond belief. A few were shocked. Some people questioned his decision to keep this information private, but he explained that he felt it was necessary to do so in order to safeguard the privacy of people close to him. "But now my global fan base needs to know the truth, and I pray that they will all stand with me, my doctors, and everyone else fighting this horrible disease." He continued, "My privacy has always been very important to me, and I am famous for my lack of interviews. I hope everyone will join me in this fight. This policy will be in place for the foreseeable future." Nevertheless, this was the final chapter, unbeknownst to him and everyone else. Freddie lost his battle with the cancer the next day, on November 24. The world fell into a hush as one of the most legendary rock musicians of all time closed his eyes for the last time. Since both of his parents were devout Zoroastrians, a priest from that faith officiated his large wedding ceremony. Members of the band as well as Elton John were among those who attended the ceremony. Kensal Green Cemetery is where Freddie's remains were cremated. And to this day, nobody knows what became to his remains. Mary Austin received half of his estate, while his closest friends and relatives received the other half. Freddie Mercury's tribute concert took place at Wembley Stadium a year later, drawing in musicians and fans from around the globe. The concert's earnings went toward establishing the Mercury Phoenix Trust, an AIDS charity named after Freddie. It is quite remarkable that Freddie and his loved ones were able to conceal one of his deepest secrets until the day before he passed away, given his immense popularity. Ignoring it has no effect. Forever, Freddie Mercury will be remembered as a rock legend.